Hi friends, happy Monday. It's me. Say hi.
Hi.
It's me and Monroe here to read our Nancy Drew book. Okay, sit down, baby. All right. So we're going to read our Nancy Drew book, The Secret of the Old Clock, the next chapter. This is by Carolyn Keene. Our next chapter is called A Tense Chase. Which way is Melbourne? Nancy asked the caretaker when they reached the highway. Down there, he pointed. That's the direction the thieves took, Nancy told him, noting the dust and the tire marks which revealed the van's exit on the highway. But she added, glancing at the dash clock, they're probably too far away by this time for us to catch them. Yes, ding it, Jeff muttered. Nancy drove as rapidly as the law permitted toward Melbourne. All the while, Jeff Tucker peered from one side of the road to the other. Those rascal thieves might have just had the nerve to stop and count their loot, he said to Nancy, so I'm keeping a sharp eye peeled. Nancy smiled in spite of the gravity of the situation. Maybe, she replied, though I thought those men would be so reckless. Oh, I don't mean out in plain sight. They might have pulled off the road back of those closed-up summer places. We'll watch for their tire marks on any dirt side road, the young sleuth said. And Jeff became so absorbed in looking for the van's tire marks that he never asked Nancy why she did come to see him at the Topham house. Those fake movers, he said as they neared the outskirts of Melbourne. I wonder how far they went. Nancy did not reply until they came to a crossroad. Then she pointed. They turned north here on this dirt road. How much farther is it to Melbourne? Only a mile, and they came into a little town. Nancy asked her companion, which way to the police headquarters? Go right down Central Avenue to Maple Street. Turn left, there it is. Reaching headquarters, Nancy parked the car and hopped out. Jeff Tucker followed as she walked briskly into the office. I want to report a robbery, she told the desk sergeant. After identifying herself, for a moment, the officer, taken back, looked in astonishment at Nancy. You've been robbed, he asked, in our town? No, Nancy cried out. Then she gave a quick but complete resume of what had taken place at the Topham's cottage. Jeff Tucker added his account. The police officer needed no further urging. Immediately, he summoned 4 men and issued orders. Now, he said, turning to Nancy, have you any idea which road the thieves took? Yes, officer. When we passed the road crossing a mile outside town, I saw their truck tracks on the dirt road leading north. I'll be glad to show you. Good, lead the way. But first, I'll send out a general alarm. Hurry, Nancy begged as she started out. Those thieves have at least an hour head start. Jeff Tucker had been advised to return to his home. Accordingly, he telephoned his son to come and pick him up in his car. Good luck, he called as the others pulled away. I sure don't know how I'm going to break this to the Tophams. Nancy was sorry for him, but she felt a thrill of excitement as she proceeded up the street, the police car following close behind. Beyond the town, Nancy chose the road which she felt certain the thieves had used. The 2 cars sped along until Nancy expectedly came to a fork. Both branches were paved and no tire marks were visible. Nancy stopped. The police car pulled up alongside. What's the matter? Asked the officer in charge, whose name was Elton. I'm not sure which way to go now. The policemen sprang from their automobile and began to examine the road. Officer Elton said, if a moving van had passed that way, its tire marks would have been obliterated by the vehicles. It was impossible to tell which route the thieves had traveled. It'll be strictly guesswork from here, Officer Elton said to Nancy. In that case, replied Nancy, it's my guess that the van went to the left. She pointed to a sign which read, Garwin 50 miles. Isn't Garwin a fairly large city? She inquired. Yes. Perhaps the thieves headed that way to dispose of the stolen furniture. The officer nodded approvingly. Sounds reasonable, he said. Well, in any case, we can't go much further because we're near the state line. Nancy had another thought. I'll take the road to Garwin and swing around toward River Heights, she smiled. If I see those thieves, I'll let you know. Well, you watch out, young lady. Those men may lock you up again. I will, anyhow. There'll be plenty of traffic as soon as I reach the main highway. Without giving the policeman an opportunity for further objection, Nancy started up and swung her car to the left. She noted in her rearview mirror that the squad car had turned into the right-hand road. The officers must have picked up a clue, Nancy said to herself, but I certainly wish I could spot the van and maybe find a chance to look in the old clock. Nancy soon reached the main road. As mile after mile of highway spun behind her, Nancy's hopes grew dim. There were a number of side roads, any one of which the moving van might have taken to elude the pursuers. Piangsu decided to adhere to her original theory that Sid and his pals had headed for Gerwin and kept on the main highway. Those thieves think Jeff and I are still locked up and won't suspect that they're being followed. She assured herself. Smiling, she thought hopefully in the case they won't be on their guard. About 10 minutes later, Nancy stopped at a service station to have her car refueled and on an impulse asked the attendant, "Did you by any chance see a moving van pass here recently?" "Sure did, miss," was the prompt answer. "About a half an hour ago. I noticed it because the driver was going at a traffic speed for a van." Heartened, Nancy thanked him and resumed her pursuit. "Going past the turn for River Heights, if only I can overtake the truck and somehow examine the Crowley clock before I have to report to the police," she thought. Again, time elapsed and Nancy still saw no sign of a moving van on the highway. It was growing dusk and she decided that she would have to admit defeat. "I never caught up to them," she sighed in disappointment and turned into the opposite lane headed back to River Heights Road. Just then, Nancy recalled that a little beyond the service station where she'd stopped, she had noticed a rather run-down old inn. It was a slime hope, she knew, but the thieves might have put their van behind it while having a meal there. "I'll go in and ask anyhow," she decided. Nancy increased her speed as much as she dared and within a few minutes came in sight of the inn. It stood back from the road a short distance and was half hidden by tall trees. In front of the building, a battered sign bearing the name Black Horse Inn creaked back and forth from a post. There was no sign of the van. Beyond the inn, Nancy glimpsed a garage and large barn. The doors to both were closed. "I wonder," mused Nancy, "if the moving van is parked inside either one." At the far side of the inn was a small woods with a narrow road leading into it. For safety's sake, Nancy thought it best to park her car on this little used road. She turned off the car lights, pocketed the key, and walked back to the carving driveway leading to the inn. As Nancy made her way forward, her heart pounded. There were tire marks which could belong to Sid's van. They led to the barn. "Maybe those thieves are eating," she thought. "I'll look." As Nancy stepped onto the porch, the sound of a raucous laughter reached her ears. She tiptoed to the window and peered inside. What the young sleuth saw made her gasp as she felt a glow of satisfaction. In a dingy, dimly lit room, 3 men were seated around a table eating vigorously. They were the thieves who had robbed the Topham bungalow. And that's the end of this chapter, so I will see you tomorrow to see what happens with Nancy and the robbers. Thank you for joining us for story time. Okay, Monroe, you want to say bye-bye? Tell the friends bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.